Hello, and you're very welcome to the Town End Podcast. It is season 3, episode 15, and success in Sligo as Dundalk come out 1-0 winners, thanks to a rare Keith Ward goal at the showgrounds. To go through the game tonight with me is David Lennon. David, how are you?
How are you, Chris?
Good to see you back on. David, look, we don't get to say success in the showgrounds too often, that's for sure. It hasn't been a place where we got many victories, so it's great to get the win tonight.
Yeah, look, firstly, let me say thanks very much for having me back on. It's always a pleasure, and I enjoyed the crack, which is always better even after a win. Which even more so doesn't happen that regularly. Yeah, look, it was overall, I thought we were the best team, firstly. I thought, some of the chances we created were very well worked. I particularly thought Dara Leahy had a very good game. I thought Patrick Hubin had a very good game. But Alfie Lewis, I thought, was really sharp. I like, other than that chance where I felt it was probably just a wee bit off balance when he had the shot. But I overall, I thought we were good value for the win, and obviously delighted for the travelling away support that they're at least making the long trip home with the 3 points in the back pocket.
Always makes that trip much easier. If we go right away back to the start, I suppose, David, we said after the UCD match that it was probably a gamble not to start Pat, because we'd seen how much of an influence he was during the Loud Derby. So to bring him back in on this is exactly the situation Skip would have wanted. Being able to rest him, bring him in now for such a crucial game again, and just to even see that name back on the team sheet again, to be able to lead us out, like, that's even just a boost, isn't it, for us at the moment, the way we can be tight for numbers at many an occasion.
Yeah, well, look, the difference with and without Pat is incredible, really. And we had a very good performance in the Belfield Bowl on Monday, and it was very much a case of picking up the points that we dropped last year, and to get away with giving the players like himself a rest on Monday after the bruise and Loud Derby last week. Was important, and going over to the showgrounds then is a totally different Tulloch.
If you did team over the past while,
it's a totally different animal, like on that pitch, particularly bobbly and the way it cuts up and everything. And I have to say, that win tonight for me was bigger than the 2-0 win in the Belfield Bowl, because of what it meant. It kept the heat on to the top 3. Exactly.
I mean, I suppose the other thing we better get into before I was just about to start talking about the match, but of course, with another third kit released for this game, after only just seeing our away jersey for the first time at UCD, we got to wear a third jersey tonight. So like another one in, it's probably divided opinion across some fans. Either you like it or you love it, sort of a way. Look, it's good. It's nice just to have it out. At least the jersey's out there now, and we're playing in it. It seemed like an eternity before we even got to wear an away jersey. And like buses, 2 come at once.
Yeah, my overall kind of initial thoughts was I don't like it personally. I suppose I feel that the blue just isn't. I know even a darker shade of blue might have been a little bit more appealing to me, but it just wouldn't be one that I particularly like. I like the away one, and I love the home one. So. Thank God we only have the odd time to wear the third kit.
Yeah, well, we would say both away jersey and our third jersey have 100% records, of course, so far. So there's always that side to it. Nathan Shepherd, for such a young guy, like, this was his 50th appearance tonight for Dundalk Football Club. That's an amazing feat already for such a young man. But I think he really proved in this match tonight. I mean, if we just go straight into what are we, 20, 21 minutes into the match, and there's a header from Max Mada, and he dives right the way down into the bottom corner to get to it. Proves how much he has grown as a goalkeeper. Like, we remember seeing him opening days of last season, and we were looking at, 2-2 draws at home to Derry, 2-2 draw at Bows. We're thinking this is going to be a roller coaster of a season. This keeper's going to have a real tough time. We're going to another season of rough keepers. I didn't think we'd have to say that again. But wow, he has really transformed into a man before us all and become a rock solid keeper, hasn't he?
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen him probably under Stephen Kenny. I think that would have been really fascinating to see how that would have panned out. He is a phenomenal goalkeeper for a man who's not massively tall, but he is so commanding. And, the way he made that save against Mata, the save that he made in the second half where I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the guy he was clean through. The fact that, he was quick off the line, he was out, he was able to block it. Whether or not he was offside, hard to know. You still have to keep the ball from going in the net. And, he's done that so many times over the last year and a half. And, would we have qualified for Europe last year without Nathan Shepherd? Not a chance in hell. Would we be fourth as we stand now without Nathan Shepherd? No. So the way I'm kind of looking at it is, you need your best players, you need a strong spine of a team, and having somebody sharp and just a great leader at the back. You can always hear him roaring in Oriel, and he's always bossing the back line around. And that was something that we really missed. To be honest with you, I really feel that since Gary Rogers left, we haven't really replaced that sort of presence in the back line. And I'm just so glad he plays with us and not with somebody else. And I just hope that he is extended for, the indefinite future, and we're the only team in Ireland he ever plays for, because if he goes to Shamrock Rovers, then I'm done.
Another person making way over 50th appearance. We better bring him in. Welcome to the show, Gally. How are you?
Evening.
Hey,
I think you're on like 100 and something appearance on this show.
I gotta be up there. I gotta be Santino at this
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Gally, we were just on the, Nathan Shepherd making his 50th appearance for Dundalk tonight, and he pulled off one or two really important saves tonight. But we were just talking how much of a stature he has grown during his career in Oriel Park. Like David just said, would we be where we are right now without him? Absolutely not. He's pulled out some massive saves tonight, one or two massive saves again, and we're kind of come accustomed to this now.
Yeah, it's kind of no matter what kind of game the Dog have, I don't think a week. I probably can't remember a week goes by where he doesn't have to make, a decent, if not a top class save. Yeah, look at him. We don't have the worst backup in Peter Cherry and Mark Bourne either. He's come in, and look, not to go back to when he first signed, but that famous or the infamous maybe that game against Bows in pre-season, we thought, God, this guy looks like a fullback. He doesn't look like a goalkeeper. That small in stature, but he really is. I mean, I said it a couple of podcasts ago. I think himself and Brian Maher are probably out on their own. Brian Maher would have got player to, goalkeeper in the best 11 in the league last year. Probably just Pip Sheps. But on their day, I know Mark Roster said it as well. I think on our day, I don't think there's a better goalkeeper in the league. If you take a save tonight, and I don't know if I'll be back talking about it, but a save tonight, it reminds me, and I think I said this about a save. I don't know if it was his save or Gary Rogers' save. I think it would have been a Shep save as well. It's almost, if people remember that far back, if you're as old as me, mid-90s, Peter Schmeichel against Rapid Vienna. That, he pulled off a save like that a couple of weeks ago, and then we've seen the save tonight on the other end. It's like, so it goes to show, like even in the league itself, there's a massive strength in goalkeeping union now. There's goalkeepers that where years ago you would have had a situation where most goalkeepers in the league wouldn't have been able to play for other clubs, if that makes sense. Whereas we've now have a situation league where everybody has a top class goalkeeper. You know, with the exception of one or two poor performances on their day, every goalkeeper in the league is top class. But I think Nathan Shepherd in particular is out on his own. I think he's really top class. I think I just caught the end of what David was saying there. You know, you got to tie this kind of lad down to a long-term contract. Now, I don't know what. Like we even thought, even when we started this year's podcast, we didn't know if he actually was signed. We didn't know if there was a long-term plan in place from.
There was the option on him, but there was no word if it was taken up or what was happening. Yeah,
it's a no-brainer with an option. I mean, it really is. Like, I think he knows himself that this is the place for him. You know, if he's gonna go, I suppose, back across the water, you know, to higher level, you know, he's going to have to perform at this level first. And I really don't think there's I don't know how many points he's probably saved us. You know, the stats will come out again, but he's top class. He really is. I mean, you know, the save down to the low post. I think he might have one of them against Derry early on in the season as well. And it's not a game where he's probably been overlooked, but it's the sign of a true keeper that can do nothing for pretty much, you know, 80, 85 minutes of a game. It's cliche to say, but then still have the concentration to pull off a save like that. But everything's improved. His goalkeeping, his distribution, his leadership at the back. You know, we didn't have that in the first probably 2 or 3 matches of the season when he first started. I mean, last season, but yeah, he's grown into an absolute vital cog. I mean, we mentioned Greg Sloggett last week being a vital player. You know, Peter Cherry, a great understudy, but Nathan Shepherd is, you know, out and out for me, the best in the league.
David, just something that's been a real Achilles heel for us this year is having the settled back four. We literally have chopped changed, you know, had Leahy at centre back and everything. But for the past 2 games, you know, Williams has been able to come back in. We've seen kind of settled wingers on both sides, or I should say fullbacks on both sides then as well, in Leahy and Davis. And then Muller in beside. Should we be surprised that in our last 2 games, we you know, including tonight, we have 2 clean sheets all of a sudden, something we've been struggling for a lot of this year. When we start to have a settled back four, everyone knows how each other are playing. And I'm just looking, you know, obviously we'll have our man-to-match competition, so just keep your nominations coming in. But, you know, there's actually a lot here for Williams tonight.
Yeah, and look, you know, I thought Williams had a very good game tonight, I have to say. And I really felt that Dara Leahy excelled on the left, as I said earlier. For me, Hayden Muller still needs to get that sort of inner confidence. I think, you know, he was put in with Andy Boyle, and as you say, there was a lot of chopping and changing, and it is very hard to get a settled back four. Is it a coincidence that the 2 games where we had, you know, a settled back four, that we got a clean sheet and victories in? Probably not, because ultimately, you know, having a strong goalkeeper at the back is one thing, but somebody who's able to boss the back four around to the point where the likes of Muller will get into position, you know, and I really feel that Williams is a player who can really kick on. There's a touch of the, you know, Kanate about him. He's very industrial, like he kind of just gets stuck in, and you know, he's not particularly sluggish, but he's not afraid of a tackle. And I think, you know, whether it be Muller or Andy Boyle, I honestly feel that they could, you know, form a really good partnership there. But somebody has to be, it needs to be settled. It can't alternate between one or the other. You know, all good defensive partnerships and all good winning teams have had steady centre backs. And, you know, if you start, I know that injuries dictate a lot of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, you would argue that Andy Boyle, based on his performances so far this season, you know, he would have been one of the first names on the team sheet. So, but it's great that we have had now 2 games where the back four have been unsung to a point in terms of not conceding. Can they be better? Of course.
Yeah.
You know, there was a couple of chances. Obviously, the big chance where the young lad was clean through on Shepherd in the second half. That was, you know, the obvious one where I think it was hard to tell. I don't know whether it was Muller or Davies that was playing them kind of borderline onside. And it's those little things. It's about keeping that sort of high line. And once they kind of get that continuity and belief in each other and know that when they're, you know, pass it to either teammates, you know, they know that the person's going to go forward, and, you know, there's no edginess about it. And to me, that's massive.
Yeah, Gary, we probably shouldn't be surprised. I think it was an interview when Williams signed. He said, "I'm a no nonsense sort of defender." You know, it's things like this we like to hear. Tough tackling, no nonsense defender. So, quote something along those lines. But it's probably taken him, like Davis just mentioned, sometimes injuries dictate a lot. Obviously, he's had a couple of suspensions, came in, you know, got the suspension straight away, and then got another one. I'm not sure he wouldn't have been suspended for the League Cup because they don't carry over, am I right? So he just got the suspension in the league in the previous match. It didn't help him get in because we were probably looking at Andy Boyle and Muller being our two centre backs. We've had discussions of Muller on the right. Is that his better position? We don't know. But Williams seems to get in there in the past two games, and in particular tonight, you know, he was a bit of class tonight, and at a time when we really needed centre backs, because we were massively needing, you know, there was none available at times over the past few weeks. It's just great to have somebody in who's in their natural position, and you can see him growing as a result then.
Yeah, I think, you know, that, like what you said there is, that's what it is. He's no nonsense. He'd be your kind of cliche ball playing centre half. He's, you know, he's got everything. Like, he's pace, he's strong, he's tall. Yeah,
probably just not the experience, isn't it?
Exactly, and that's it. Like, he's young. I mean, you know, he probably hasn't much sniff of balls. Similar to Tulloch when he's come over as well. Like, you know, tonight, and he has played before, and he's been decent, and, you know, he has the kind of he has that little, I don't know what you call it, ability, but the head staggers can go. He can get a little bit. I'd say if he was chasing someone down, he'd chop them in half rather than try and get the ball. You know, he's one of those centre halves. You know, he'd rather just take it, and, you know. But I think you need players like that. You know, I think you needed someone in CDM as well to go in and absolutely, you know, really mess with the midfield. That's the man as well. But tonight in particular, we're just talking based on tonight. I thought he was excellent. I think he's right up there for man of the match. The thing I like about him is that, although we've mentioned Andy Boyle, I think Muller's probably, in my opinion, still a better fullback. But then again, without Davis having a little bit of run that he's having, he's going to find that very difficult as well. But I'd like to see him and Louis play centre half, and I know that would leave Andy Boyle out. But even as a three, if you've got Williams sitting in the middle, you know, I think that kind of, that pace, that strength, you know, he's got a little bit of mentality to kind of improve on because he's young and he hasn't played he's probably played more football here than anywhere. But I really think there's a real top centre half there. And like we mentioned, I know David had mentioned there about Sheps going to a certain other club. Clubs will be looking around for this guy. Like, you know, another player that we'd be looking at after the season finishes to maybe get him back in. And I think he's a real quality player. The problem is, like you say, he'd been suspended. Did he pick up an early injury as well? I'm not sure. I can't remember if there was it was mentioned. Yeah, but I think, you know, if he gets the ground running, you know, over the next couple of weeks, if he can get a run at it, what you hope is he gets a run. Whether he does, if Andy Boyle comes back, we don't know. But he hasn't done himself, you know, any disservice tonight. I think he's if Eddie's done himself a favour to play into the 11, I think he's exactly what you need against the type of centre forward that comes up in League of Ireland. Like the likes of, I'm thinking like Freddie Draper that plays at Strada, you know, that type of pace, that strength. Not that the lads can't do it, but that's what you need. Someone to go in early and lay down the law really early. I thought he was really good tonight, especially in the early parts of the game. I thought he did a nice tackle, nice to and fro with Max Mada. Yeah, I thought he was really, really strong tonight. Without a doubt, his best performance. I mean, I thought he played well a couple of weeks ago as well, but I think tonight, absolutely. I mean, right up there for man of the match. I know a lot of names have come in, but I thought he was really excellent. I actually thought a lot. If you were probably picking him, you know, if you were probably picking your strongest centre halves, he's probably played himself right in there with Andy Boyle. I mean, over just on what we've seen of him. Muller, like David said, I'm a fan of Muller, but not as a centre-half. It's really difficult to see where he goes because Archie Davis is really getting the run of he's getting up to speed now with the league. I think he's really getting up and down that wing where he wasn't at the start. I didn't think he was going to be great at the start, but it's interesting. It's a nice headache that we have those options now. And Ainsley still has to come in, and you've also got Robbie McCourt. I know, look, he's been injured, and he's whether he's always going to play a lot for the club, I don't know. But they're all options that come in. You've also got Darrell Lee. He can fall in at centre half as well if needed on the left. But yeah, I think he's definitely one to look at as a starting place with Andy Boyle. Should everybody be fit?
Yeah, Dave. Look, I suppose the other thing, we're waxing lyrical about how well we've played tonight and how players have gone well. Coming into this fixture, I think we all probably could name off the players. We're all worried. We're all worried about Hartman. We're all worried about Max Mata, and we're all worried about Radoslavich. Would you say they had an off night tonight, or like Hartman got pulled fairly early? Max Mata ended up coming off with an injury. He missed a big header. Radoslavich, like you said, that 1-on-1, when he was in with Shep then as well. Like, did we contain them, or did they have a bit of an off night tonight? Do you feel?
I suppose a little bit of both. I mean, you have to give credit to the way Skip kind of set the team up. I thought that, the game plan worked out well. For the first period, probably the first half of the first half, we had, good possession and we were creating a few chances without anything massively dangerous. And then I feel that, those players that you mentioned were, I wonder, was Mata carrying an injury before the game? He didn't fully look fit to me. And it didn't surprise me that he went off. He's a player who always causes us trouble. And always seems to have a good day against us. So it was interesting that he just looked a yard off the pace. And, I think for certain chances, you have to give credit to the defenders, because, I mean, just putting them under that little bit of pressure causes that moment of hesitancy where, they fluff the chance. So for me, it's a case of both. And to be honest, I was glad to see it because, we needed to keep the heat on, to keep the European dream alive. And also it's important for us to keep the momentum going as long as we can into the summer for our own particular European adventure this year. Never mind what comes this time next year. So, it was a good game, and the best team won, in my opinion.
Up your boy, yeah.
Gally, we talked about it in the Louth Derby recently. The impact John Martin can have when he comes off from the bench, let's say, rather than when he starts on the pitch. He came in, and you've mentioned it there already. He literally comes in as a substitute for Ryan O'Kane, who had a decent enough game. His set piece deliveries was much better, and that's kind of what we need. I think probably Ryan and Wardy are probably our two best set piece deliverers. But literally, when John Martin comes on the pitch, he has that downward header, and like you say, McNicholas pulls off a worldly of a save. But that's the sort of impact that he can have. He's about to wheel away the other way, celebrate, isn't he? He doesn't think he's getting to that.
Yeah, I like even when you mentioned the save, you'll go very far to see a better save all season. Like, whatever about stopping the ball at his hand and keeping the ball close, the fact that he's been able to palm it away. Now, I haven't seen another replay of another angle, but I'm assuming he's palmed it away up. It's Schmeichel-esque. It really is. It's top class, and people can jander on that it's League of Ireland and that, but that's as good as a save as you'll see. If that's in the Premier League tonight, it's all over Sky Sports.
It is, yeah.
But that's the impact John Martin can have: pace, strength, good in the air. And I think the issue with him starting games is that he gets very tired. He gets very playable, if that makes sense. They find it, when he comes off the bench, they don't really know what to do with him in the first couple of minutes. And as the game weathers on, he kind of runs out of ideas. He's not that Pat Hooban, as we've mentioned before. But I think coming on fresh, having watched the game, viewed the game, I think that's where his best is. And that's not to do him with the saying he's just a substitute. That's not what we're saying. But I think when Pat's playing, obviously you're going to struggle to get in. But to give that option of coming on for Ryan O'Kane, who's been decent. Ryan's had he's had a cracking bank holiday weekend last week. Fantastic, 2 matches. He's been good tonight, absolutely. To come on and replace someone like Ryan O'Kane, who's on the wing, cross, and like you say, set piece deliveries were decent, cross were decent along with Archie Davis. But that's what John gives you, that little bit of, something different. And the issue with him starting games is that that's something different. There's nobody to come off the bench and give you that something different. Where John Martin has that in abundance. And I think, look, if he gets 9-10 of them across the season, he score 9 of them. It's a fantastic save. I mean, absolute quality. Like everybody, like I'm sure anybody watching it was up because you were almost blinded by the defenders. So you were up, you were just assuming it was hit the net, and it's a cracking save. Look, brilliant header. He's made it perfectly on the full, but the save is just sensational.
Yeah, David, Anne Riley's probably beaten me to the chase on this, but if John Martin's substitute was good, the Warley substitute from Skip was even better tonight, and the timing of all those substitutes as well. Just as, like you say, Sligo were losing Max Mada, and they looked like they were kind of tiring slightly. Suddenly, there are 2 massive impact subs that Skip made tonight that really changed the difference. And what Warley's only on the pitch, less than 5 minutes was he, and suddenly he pops up for it. But also on the lead up to that goal, like John Martin's involved again, so both subs were involved in that goal.
Yeah,
how did you see it?
The subs were made at the right time, the right players coming on for the right players coming off, and just at that particular time, you could see that the defenders were getting used to the fact that, I'm sure they were delighted that Ryan O'Kane was being taken off because of his delivery being so good all night. And they were like, oh, thank God for that. And then John Martin comes on, and within then a minute, he has that header. Wardy, look, he was always good for unlocking the defense. And once he was coming on, I looked at the watch and I said, right, he's got 14 minutes now to do what he has to do. And like, he won a free kick for a very soft free kick that I was surprised Paul McLaughlin gave it, because he wouldn't normally. But he was immense when he came on, and for him to rise like a salmon, as Gally said in a message earlier, to put the ball more, and there was power in it as well. The keeper got a hand to it, but because there was so much kind of venom in the header, it squirmed under him, and all credit to him. And I know there's a lot of people saying Williams for man of the match, Shepherd for man of the match, but ultimately the man who put the ball in the net will be my man of the match.
Gally, I was only saying to David before this, when in the build-up to that play, when John Martin rolls the ball over to Archie Davis and he overhits the cross in, I thought, this is shells all over again. Why are we overhitting these cross? And David, you said it to me there, fair play to Leahy, just doesn't give up. He chases it, makes sure the ball doesn't go out of play, recycles it back to Tulloch. Tulloch lays it back to him, and it's just a peach of a cross in to Wardy, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure they're looking going, right, this is going to be a cross in, surely Wardy, we don't need to mark him with his height, but like, it's a pinpoint cross. It's the best cross of the night, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're disappointed that Leahy was also, like, after the air ball, which Archie Davis had a lot of at Shelbourne, I'm sure they're disappointed that Leahy got the ball and was able to go to Tulloch with it, because it's crazy to let a ball go back and then be repassed to Leahy as well. That's crazy stuff out of the edge of the box so late in the game. But what was interesting, I seen a replay of the goal, when the ball goes right over Wardy over the way, his head goes down. He's almost so frustrated with the pass across that comes in.
We all were.
And most of it, most people mightn't even be alert waiting for the second ball. I think he's just assuming it's going to go into the stands, but he gets himself on, he gets the right spot. I mean, I don't know how many yards he looked like in the replay. It looks like he's had loads of space. But like even to get it down to go across himself into the far corner, most people had head that down into the near post, in front of them, and he probably remembered the save that Nicholas done from John Martin. I didn't want to repeat, so let's hit it the other side. Look, it's not something we're used to. I head up, from probably the smallest man in League of Ireland, never mind the smallest man on the pitch. But look, it's fantastic, and nothing they didn't deserve. Like you had said, like Anne had mentioned, subs made a difference. And it's nice to see the subs make a difference because we've had plenty of games this season where they haven't come off. The 11 that started haven't worked. The subs that come off have been, some of them have been crazy over some of the games, silly decisions in my opinion, but and that really haven't worked out. But tonight, Illy Cook was at a decent match. Mali actually a good game as well. But the swap for Ward there, bringing on John Martin, perfect timing. I mean, really perfect timing. And the funny thing is, if you bring them on maybe 10 minutes earlier, you probably don't get that little run off them. You probably don't get that little bit of bounce that they gave in the last 20 minutes. And that's why John Martin and Keith Ward, to a certain extent, are much better coming off the bench generally, because they give that little bit of difference and that little bit of impact that a tired team won't like playing against. So if Ryan O'Kane and Tulloch have run these boys ragged, they don't want the John Martin coming onto them. Or a Keith Ward, them delivery set pieces. Like Keith Ward probably is the best touch of a football in the league. It's crazy when he's on his day, he's unplayable. So big moments like that, Sodden feel really vindicated in making those decisions and the way it started tonight. And look, it's like Jay had said, 3 very different wins over the last couple of weeks. We're on a fine bounce. I think it's 5 unbeaten. So
5 unbeaten now.
It's average.
2 wins, 3 draws.
Last couple of weeks have been fantastic.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think as the season has progressed, our deliveries have gotten so much better. And I believe that they're probably working really hard in training on set pieces. I think Ryan's every ball he delivered in against UCD on Monday was incredible, like at a standard I haven't seen since Mickey Duffy and even Darrell Horgan. And for a young lad to be putting in those sort of deliveries was really refreshing to see. But to then go and see, Davies hadn't the best ball just before the goal, but for the ball to come in then from Leahy on the left, for it to come in as sharp, and all the power was on the ball. Wardy to glance it and give it with enough kind of oomph that it was able to worm its way in. And for me, credit has to go to the coaching setup, and it's obviously something that they are working on. And I was only 5 or 6 games ago we were wondering where were all our chances going to come from. We were creating absolutely nothing. We can't score from corners. We can't. There was a lot of doom and gloom. But I really feel that there has been an upward shift, particularly from dead ball positions where the delivery has been so much better. We've been more threatening in terms of the bigger players being up in the penalty area and making themselves a nuisance for defenders. And I think that's ultimately going to be the next step for us to get on now and start putting even more of them into the back of the net. And I think it's only a matter of time. Hopefully we'll be able to strengthen in the summer. That's the hope, because we're quite short when it comes to options due to injuries. So if you don't go out, what happens if Patrick Hoban gets injured and is out, similar to last season where he misses the whole tail end of the season? You don't want to be hanging on for dear life again the way we were. You all ultimately want to improve, and you want to be a step above what you were the year previous. And does our squad reflect an improvement on last year? At this point you would say no, because of where we were this time last year. I know we're only 6 points off Bows, who are top, so that's only two reversal of wins somewhere. But from the perspective of squad depth and everything, I feel we're probably just on a par. I don't feel that we've really kind of strengthened enough, especially to have any sort of run in Europe. And as we know over the years, those league games in and around Europe are going to be the ones that are going to make or break the season then,
Yeah, Gally, like just even on that point there tonight, David's talking about strength and depth in the team. This has probably been our strongest bench that Skip's even been able to field so far. So, like on the bench tonight, we had John Ward, Keith Ward, John Martin, Paul Doyle, Dan Kelly was back on the bench, probably not fit enough, but he was there. Obviously, Peter Cherry, Cameron Elliott back in there, Robbie McCourt, Owen Kenny, and Mark Byrne. Like we've seen Skip for the past while probably put 2 or 3, if not more, young lads on it just to fill places on the bench. Like, and it can't be any coincidence that if you take the Lough Derby win and tonight's win, that it's impact subs in John Martin previously, and now Keith Ward coming on to make this, because Skip can probably see previously he's just had to either go with what was there, or he's making like for like changes because he's trying to, due to the injuries or whatever, he's had to make substitutions previous towards this was probably more tactical subs and getting himself in this and getting it in a position to win the match tonight, and previously in the draw of the match too.
Yeah, and it's nice to have that option where you're not kind of, it got to a stage there maybe 4 or 5 games ago, maybe 6 games ago, that they were making subs because they had subs. But there was nothing happening. It was kind of like we've had 2 keepers on the bench most of the season, which is, it just goes to show many injuries you had. You normally wouldn't see that. I know, look, you can type the name you like on the bench, but like you'd say, a lot of youngsters not playing. It'd be different from coming on. They're just there to kind of, because you can name so many subs, which is a pity in a way. It's nice to see some of the young fellas playing, but sometimes, games don't really call for it. But it's nice, like you say, tactical, meaningful subs, not something to say, right, you're having a shocker, get off, we're going to have to put someone else in. Whereas players were coming off tonight, not because they were poor, just said, right, we'll just change it up a little.
Like there was nothing wrong with Ryan O'Kane tonight, but he could swap that for John Martin and just give it something different.
We've got enough of the ball, let's try and utilise it a different way. Whereas a couple of weeks ago, they were probably saying, look, you're having a nightmare, let's just try this. Egypt.
Yeah.
Like that's the way that it got to the stage where it's just like, we'll just try anybody. I don't mean anybody, I don't mean it like that, so fickle, but there was subs made. I can't even remember the players, but I know we spoke about it here on the podcast. There was some crazy subs made at crazy times in games where a call for someone else, and whereas tonight it's exactly why you have substitutes, and exactly why they're paid, the staff and the coaches are paid the money to say, right, there's an opportunity here. Let's get John Martin on. Let's get Keith Ward on. Whoever it is, and it's nice. Like we are light. They agree. We've been light, probably even without injuries. We're probably light. We're definitely light up top. I mean, we don't have. Like I know Owen Kenny's an attacking player. Will you see a lot of him this season? Unless
you say Elliott's probably ahead anyway.
Yeah, unless there's real serious injury problems. But I think I agree with David. I think we need to we're going to need to look at someone for up top later in the season. How Dave McMillan, I've said it before, how Dave McMillan's allowed to retire and have no option. Like I can't believe nobody in the league took him. I said this the first podcast. And maybe look, he didn't fancy the full time. I don't know, but how nobody in the league signed that up, I've absolutely no idea. And the funny thing is, I said at the start of the season, not to get off topic, if he'd have played the UCD, if he'd have signed for UCD and played the first night of the season for UCD, they would have bet us. Because the way they were playing, he would have scored 2 at least, because we had a shocker. But yeah, look, just from our own perspective, it's great to have a bench that will come on and do a bit of damage. And look, in fairness, we had those similar numbers at the start of the season, but we didn't know what we were dealing with. The Mullers, the Davises, we didn't, the Louis Ainley, we didn't know what these players were going to give us, Mali, that kind of thing. But now we've got a little bit of, I thought Alfie Lewis as well tonight probably flew under the radar. Decent game as well. I still say further up the field, if Sloggett's playing, that's the place to find them at. But, having these players come off the bench, and we've mentioned numerous times, we don't want to go back to talking about John Martin, but that's literally what he was got for. Those type of impacts, that type of unsettling everybody when he comes on. And, he's proved it within a minute. Apart from a world-class save, it's justified after probably 45, 50 seconds.
But also...
Go on, Dave, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, like, the big difference between now and, 6 games ago is confidence. And I mean, John Martin got his winner against Drogheda, and he's almost like a different player. He was so strong against UCD, got another goal. So he's on a bit of a surge. And then he's coming on tonight, and he has the belief back in himself again that he can score in this Dundalk team. And I think that was something that was lacking in earlier in the season. So you weren't you know, the subs, even though they were being made at various times, were probably not having the desired impact because players were a bit just feeling it out and not sure about the pitch and all the other stuff that was going on. And I honestly feel like, you know, that Wardy and particularly John Martin, when he came on, those two are coming on now with an extra spring in their step because of how they played over the last 3 or 4 or 5 games, and got some important goals in that period. So you're completely right in what you're saying there, Gally. Like, you know, we are light up top, and it's great that we have the depth there now. And
that's probably the first time today, though, David, isn't it?
It's what, sorry?
That's probably the first time that we've had that depth. That's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And look, you know, the whole 2 goalkeepers on the bench thing, like, why not just, you know, bring up another young player? Even from a mindset of opposition looking at the bench, you see 2 goalkeepers on the bench and you have a world-class goalkeeper already on the pitch. Like, the likelihood of 2 goalkeepers going down injured and needing the third choice is virtually nil. Touch wood, don't want to jinx it. But like, I just feel that we are missing some very critical players, Robbie Benson, Greg Sloggett.
Yeah.
I mean, we know what these players can do for us and how they'll really help the team when they come back. And that's a good headache to have. But right now, you know, I feel that even though you're able to get results based on your performances, you really need to start kind of blooding maybe 1 or 2 new faces as well in terms of the youth setup, and just give them that experience. Because even though we know Ryan O'Kane is, you know, probably once in a generation, you know, quality, you know, young Owen Kenny could be, you know, as good. He's obviously doing it at underage international level, but you know, you'd like to see him, you know, even if it's just coming on for 5 minutes at the end, just to get a feel for it. And I would like to see, you know, some of the youth getting utilized in important games, even for short spells.
I suppose that's where you'd like your probably 1 or, you know, probably 2 or 3-0 cushion. Like, it's so rare. If we had that little bit of cushion, maybe in the last couple of minutes, you might see. But yeah, look, I agree.
You see that in the league though this year, Gally, as well. Like in the league, there's nobody really going with these big wins. I know you could say, well, those won with Bows there recently enough, but like at most of the games this weekend was all just won by the odd goal.
Yeah, yeah, that just goes to show the league, although it doesn't look at on points, you know, teams are very, because of the style of football nowadays, you know, you'll get a similar type of, you know, kind of volume of technical prowess between all the coaches, because that's what you get. Everybody's singing off the same hymn sheet. You know, you do your pro license in this country, you've all learned in the same room, so everybody goes away and does the same stuff. You know, that's why we find the badge is mental. But like, you know, you get this kind of, you don't get the caliber of players from different teams. That's the difference. You know, we have an example of UCD. UCD play unbelievable football. They just don't have that little bit of experience. That they don't have a player that's got that 4 or 5 year experience in the league. You know, like, because they're all coming through the youth system. They're all coming through the, you know, their whatever they have at the Leinster League, and then they've got UCD. They might get 2 seasons at UCD and they're gone.
Yeah.
But you know, everybody plays at a similar rate and a similar way. You just have that little bit of caliber extra, and that's where these signings will come in. And you know, I'd love to see the likes of, you know, but that's the football fan in me. You want to see a young Owen Kenny coming on because of the, you know, the name and what it means to the Dogs. That's, you know, you want to see that type of player coming on tonight. Look, I suppose an option up top. Maybe the game's a wee bit too tight, but you'd like to think if those players kind of kick on and kind of cultivate that ability they all have and play week in, week out, and I can get a little bit of a head of steam in games and get maybe 2 or 3 goals up. You might see the likes of that. I think that's probably what you want to be waiting for. Because I think even Stephen had said, like, you know, they didn't really expect Ryan O'Kane to make an impact that early. I mean, he came on like a duck to water when he played. I mean, I still remember his pre-season against It might have actually been the same game against Bowes. Was it Bowes or
No, it was a different one. It was the previous season.
Was it? Yeah, when he had his, and like he's taking free kicks, corners, just electing himself. It was just a breath of fresh air. And I think, Owen Kenny looks to have that little natural ability. And yeah, look, and not just him, I'm sure there's plenty of others. It's just a matter of, one or two have slipped through the net, unfortunately, during pre-season. But, you just get, you blood them in and get them a little bit of game. That like Kieran, Jesus Christ, go back to last week's podcast. Like David Lennon said, you got to get that. It's all right taking them on the trips and putting them on the bench and, having them in with the lads. But to know that you're coming off the bench ahead of someone else, a senior pro or, getting a bit of a run, that must do wonders for people's, their confidence, their kind of, their ability and their mental strength has to go through the roof when that type of thing happens. And you'd love to see that type of thing. Whether or not tonight calls for it, I don't know. Only the staff will know, but I definitely love to see that over the next couple of weeks. And even if we're under pressure, throw them on, because it's the same with Ryan O'Kane. Nobody knows how to deal with him. When he first started, nobody knew how to play him. So you bring on an Owen Kenny, you're going off Twitter. Any of the goals he's played internationally, nobody's seen him play. So not even Dundalk fans. Like many Dundalk fans have not watching the 19s or the 17s over the last couple of years. Very, very few. So unless you've seen him playing at international level to youths, you haven't really seen him play that much. So he's an unknown quantity. And yeah, look, I think he'd be brilliant coming off. Like, I'm not saying it has to happen, but it's definitely something we're going to have to look at in case, like David had said, Pat Hooban or someone gets injured. It's an option there for someone, or God forbid, a Ryan O'Kane. Things can happen, and it's nice to have those options. But it's also 3 wins on the bounce in 3 different kits. So that's like that's an even greater stat. I don't know if you've mentioned the kit already. I missed the start, but yeah.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on it there, Gary?
The kit?
Yeah, we just said we've been away kit with 100% record, and now this third kit with 100% record now too.
Yeah, when it came out, I remember them talking about the light. It was supposed to be lime green. I thought I dreamt that, but that was the original kind of the United type of thing. But when it came out, I kind of like, oh, that's real shocker. But I don't know if you were to take the Dundalk badge off it. I think it's a cracking jersey. I think it's actually it's grown on me over the week. But
it's only because we got a win in it tonight.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I see the tonight. I thought it looked really well. I don't know if it's.
Do you want these, Gally? Yeah.
As a kit, if you just take it as a kit without who it belongs to, it's a really nice kit. I just don't know where or who said navy and sky. I just don't know. It's a really strange concept. I would have preferred something like an orange, go back to the GNR or, I like, and then look, to contradict myself, we had Paul on here from the kit box a couple of weeks ago, and I like to see away kits as mad as possible. And that's definitely as mad as possible. That's as mad.
You're obviously listening.
Like that's right up there with the Pupple one. I know the Pupple one a couple of years ago was a Temple Street one off.
Yeah,
but it's right up there with that. Will I buy it? If somebody bought it for me, I think I'd know it. As a kid, it's very hard to describe because as a Dundalk fan, it just doesn't look like it should be our kit. Do you know what I mean? It's got that, like Donald had said, it's that Wickham Wanderers. It's got that Wickham Wanderers look off it. But as an actual kit, I think it's actually top class. I really think it's. I paraphrased that days or there. I think it's a lovely kit. I just think it's very hard to get the concept of the 3 boards on it with Dundalk. I think that's just a bit of a concept to grab for people. But as the week's gone on, I have to admit, the more I've seen it in the photos, I like the kit. I'm not a fan of the shorts, but I do. The actual jersey, I think, is lovely.
Maybe they're just trying to entice Darryl Horgan back, and
that's it.
Look well in that. It's all mind games.
Yeah, it's all mind games. It's all mind games.
Yes.
Well, look, Dave, you've already given us a small glimpse into your man of the match, so we'll go through that now. So if anyone wants to be included in the man of the match competition, now is your chance before we wrap up. David, I'll let you go first, but I think we know where this was going.
Yeah, and which is really surprising. I haven't seen one coming up with his name.
No, you're on your own on this one.
We deleted him for you to make it awkward.
Which is surprising. It's a toss between 3 for me. Obviously, if you're talking about players who play the full 90, I would probably give it to Shepherd.
Okay.
But man of the match has to be Keith Ward. He put the ball in the net. He was in the right place at the right time.
Right. Well, I was going to go with Nathan Shepherd as well. For the most outrageous answer, yes. For me, it would be Nathan Shepherd as well. I just thought 2 or 3 real big saves today on his 50th appearance for the club as well. It's, I'm assuming possibly, David, your other option might have been Williams tonight as well.
Yeah.
Was your third, yeah. And to be fair, it's probably Shepherd and Williams.
Yeah, for full 90 minutes, it's a very tight call between Shepherd and Williams. And, ultimately, the man on the line would be the one who would make the most of it, because I mean, if one of them sneaks through, it's a very different game. So yeah, well, I'll change my mind and I'll go Shepherd just to be a wee bit less outrageous. Then is that all right?
That's all right, Gally. It looks like you're off the hook on this anyway. That you're not going to have a deciding vote.
It would have been a 3-way tie, because I'm going for Waziri Williams. I thought he was excellent. I know, I can see why. Like, it's only when you sit back and say, God, Nathan Shepherd made 50 appearances for Dundalk. He's been top class. It's very, apart from a pre-season game, he's been pretty solid. It's hard to argue, but I just thought with Williams tonight, I just thought he had his best performance. I thought he was really, really good. And look, Marley had a decent game in spells as well. I know he's got a mention.
Marley got a shout already.
David, I'm surprised as you with Keith Ward. Match-winning goals are vital. I mean, Tiernan Mulvaney mentioned Pat Hubin as player of the season last year, because without him, we were shocking, even though he only played half the season. And it's a right way to look at it. But no, I would have went for Williams, so it probably wouldn't have mattered. But it would have been Williams for me tonight. Yeah.
Right, it was close enough tonight. Just because this gave us a chuckle at the start, David, I actually think I'm going to give this to the Tin Tomato. What a great name, by the way. We don't want any Tulloch bashing tonight. So congratulations. If you make contact with us here, we'll sort you out for your Tony's Pizza. And as always, thank you to Tony's Pizzeria for their ongoing support on the podcast here. So it's a 15-inch pizza for yourself.
No tin tomato on that pizza.
No, hopefully that tomato will not be used as part of it. Just on that point though, David, like over the past few weeks, we've kind of probably been fairly frustrated with Tulloch on this. We can see glimpses that he has something about him. We haven't seen it in a consistent way. Pretty, I would say, a industrial sort of performance from him tonight. He seemed to ruffle a few feathers when he had to in their back line, which is what I always like to see. Got in there with a couple of chances himself. He could have got one in the first half. It was bending, but just not enough. Got a good save then for the keeper as well. Are we seeing, maybe Williams, like we've seen him create sometimes, we've seen him kind of go down a rabbit hole all by himself and other times and really frustrate us. But I thought it was quite a good performance by him tonight without being outstanding at the same time.
I don't want to kick off a riot, so
please don't.
Be careful with what I say here.
Yeah.
I personally love him. I think he's brilliant. I think he's one of those players who you just don't know what he's going to do. And I think having a player like that must be very unnerving for defenders. So his performance tonight, it was industrial.
So that was a good word for it.
But it's important to put in performances like that, because there will be games where there'll be a big pitch and he'll be able to run into the space and really show off his skills. I mean, I think back to that goal in Weavers Park or whatever it's called this week, and like the fact that he was able to lay it off and that winner, I'll never forget the running in.
He occupied 3 defenders that night, like to pass it off to man.
Like, his touch, his control, he's still learning the league and he's still young. I mean, it's like there's so much more positives than negatives about him. I know there are times where you can frustrate, and who doesn't? I mean, if you're going to be critical of players for trying things, then football probably isn't for you. But at the end of the day, he's a player who can really make a difference. He scored a great goal against Shells in Talca, you know, and he's ultimately, you know, one of those players who can turn a game on a sixpence. And for me, that's important because we don't have enough of them. We haven't had, like, having Daryl Horgan used to be, you know, that player who would just do a piece of magic. He'd do a step over and all of a sudden the defense would part way, a bit like Moses, would part ways. And I while I'm not saying that Tulloch is, you know, there yet, I think with, you know, another look, at the end of the day, I know he's on loan, unfortunately. So it's kind of, we're probably not going to get to see the best of him. But if you know, Skip thought that he was worth taking a punt on, had he get a full season of League of Ireland football under his belt, I think next year he really could kick on, because I don't. For me,
he's only 22 as well. Like,
I mean, he's very, very young, and for me, ultimately, you know, the Oriel surface is not good enough, and like, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole of ranting about the pitch, but you know, on various nights you can see that players are just afraid to do that wee bit extra thing because the ball could go anywhere and they don't just trust what they're playing on. So I feel that with a few more months under his belt, I think Tulloch really would, you know, become a really critical cog in the wheel. And I really hope that, you know, Skip tries to make his deal permanent or at least extend a loan for a longer duration.
Yeah, look, and I think you know, Gally, we've probably talked about this as well, and there's so many of these players on this current team as well. Like I just checked Williams there; he's only 23 as well. Like, so he's massive growing to do as a player, and like I said, never mind adapting to this league too.
Yeah, I mean, like, he's one of we kind of said here last week, we didn't realize how little he had played. You know, he'd been out on loan before, but you know, you'd said last week here that his most senior appearances is here. And you know, I think I agree with David. I think he could be really, really solid football. I think he could be top class again. You know, we kind of loosely mentioned there the pitch could be a factor. The pitch is a factor with a lot of players, I think. I think a lot of players over the years have probably said no to Dundalk because of the pitch. And look, we can go down, like David said, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but that could be an issue for players. It can suit some players, you know, but I mean, obviously, the grand. That's my dog barking. But yeah, look, I think Tulloch going forward needs to be signed down. I'd love to get him in for at least 2 seasons. Like David said, we are in danger of having him on loan for a season, and then his best years are with someone else. And that's fine, you know, like, but I mean, you'd like to think in the back when he's thinking, I'd like to stay here and really test myself, you know.
Yeah. Look, before we just get into, lads, we'll finish up shortly to talk about the upcoming Cork match. We'll just have a quick look at the table just to see where that victory put us tonight. Hopefully it does come up. Yeah, it came up very slow, but it came. So obviously Bows stay top by a point on 28. Shamrock Rovers, after a victory over Bows the previous night, puts them only 1 point behind on 27. Gap back then to Derry on 25 after their win in Weavers Park on Friday night. Dundalk fourth on 22 points. We jump ahead of Shells on 21, and then Pats behind that on 20. And it's like a waterfall, this, lads. 1 point between everybody. Back then to Sligo on 19 points, who we started off on the same point of, and then a gap below that then of 5 points to Drogheda, then gap then again to Cork and UCD. David, just quickly looking at that table, you know, is this kind of the area you were probably thinking we would be in this, hoping to be, should I say, more so than anything, in this fourth, third kind of an area? We probably thought Shamrock Rovers and Derry would occupy the top spots. Gally, you've mentioned it before, that Bows have really just, it's the cat amongst the pigeons as a team. We didn't expect to be there. But David, for yourself, like, is that like after a rocky part, like you've mentioned previously already this season, is that kind of roughly where you'd like to be, though?
Yeah, well, no, I'd prefer to be higher, but
Yeah.
yeah, like at the end of the day, you have to be realistic, and I think we, as a support base, have been spoiled for the last decade. We are where we are. I would believe that's probably a fair reflection of where we are now. As players that are young and growing and trying to find their way. It's crazy that that there is only 6 points between ourselves and Bowes, and then what is it? 3 points then down to seventh,
Yeah.
which is crazy stuff. Um, with the game coming up on Friday night, and you're looking at that league table, and you can see the form that we're unbeaten in 5, and Cork have lost all 5. You need to be putting this one to bed on Friday night. While I'm not saying it needs to be emphatic, but it probably does, because if, as I said to you, I think off air, the games that we have, the 4 games right after that game,
Yeah.
I don't know, have you a wee graphic of what we have coming up after that, Chris?
I will get that for you now.
Get
I
that.
will get that.
Talk about putting them under pressure, David.
Yeah, it's all right. I can
Um,
adapt here. So obviously, yeah, the next round of fixtures, we have Cork coming straight up, and then it's Derry after that on another Monday fixture, followed by Bowes then again. So
yeah, and then right after that, then we have away to Pats,
away to Pats, yeah,
and away to Rovers. So they're
correct.
our next 5. So we need to be getting the 3 points on Friday night to give us the momentum, the belief that we can really go toe to toe over the next 5. There's no reason why we can't, based on what we've seen so far this season. We've definitely had the measure of Derry City. The Rovers game, well, the less we say about that one, the better. But I thought that we put in a performance in Dalymount on, I think it was the second night of the season, where we probably could have gotten something.
We probably left that a bit late, though, did we?
We left it just a little late, yeah. So I think maybe coming up against them now, where they're not as free flowing as they were, and I know they were robbed of a penalty against Rovers last night, but I think they've lost 2 in their last 5, so there'd be an element of doubt maybe creeping in there as well. But you need to be beating Cork when they are on their knees. You need to be beating that one, and then give yourself the best chance possible then for the next 5, and then all of a sudden you're into Europe and into June, and anything can happen then at that point.
Yeah, Gary, I think if you look at that, and David's mentioned just the form running into that, you take away Shamrock Rovers, who are on 4 wins on the trot. Like, we're the next best team behind Shamrock Rovers right now. Yep. And you've got to carry that momentum in, and as I say, you can't help but then look at Cork then and say it's 5 defeats in a row, and you've got to take advantage, like David said, of these at these times, to be able to build some momentum, to have 4 wins in a row going into that busy period as well. That's key. I mean, we can add in now that it's 5 unbeaten, but it's 3 wins in a row. If we can add another in there, that's real momentum now and confidence building for this team.
Yeah, and especially at Oriel as well, and especially what Cork done to us down there a couple of weeks ago. And
we're due to get one back.
Yeah, we're definitely due one there. And that, like, for all the the size of the club Cork is, it's a first division team. I mean, really, they're a very bang average team in my opinion. The only thing is they've changed manager. I kind of caught some of the highlights last night. I thought they were actually going to turn Pats over. A Buckley team, they're going to be decent. That's like what way that the appointments walk down there. Who was the master struggle behind that? But yeah, I think coming up to Oriel Park, they'll relish that because they've turned us over. They got the first one of the season against us, and yeah, Dundalk, Cork, they're not the gigantic rivalry we used to have with them. They're not that kind of level, but it's still a massive game because 5 games unbeaten for any team, or 5 games unbeaten, and then 5 games where you haven't won a game is probably, they probably have more of an incentive to come up and turn us over. So I don't think they're going to get it easy. But like David said, you would be expecting us to go out from the bounce that we've got now, that little bit of a kind of a stepping stone towards a couple of games more of not dropping points. You'd fully expect us to turn Cork over, especially that Cork team. You know, I don't see a lot in them. We were poor down there. We were poor in Turner's Cross. And I think, you know, coming up to anybody listening to this back or reading comments, when this goes live later on, if you're not watching it. But yeah, you'd fully expect that, like Dave said, the running, you probably won't see a tougher running, you know, just the way they fall at the time we're playing them at. But yeah, you'd fully expect that, you know, a game, you know, a Cork game, Oriel Park, packed house, especially with that kind of motivation. You've seen the video of Skip after the game there, you know, going to the crowd after the match, you know, getting them G'd up, and you want that from the start on Friday night. And you know, you're expecting a win, but I mean, look, you just don't know what you're going to get. You don't, like, if Colin Healy's still managing them, you're definitely expecting to win, because they just haven't let them run it. They just couldn't get going on them. But now it's different. You know, they've got someone with, you know, is there anybody in League of Ireland with more experience than Liam Buckley? There's not many. You know, you're talking.
I think Buckley, though, he's not a manager who tends to put 11 behind the ball.
No,
you know,
exactly.
He I'm sure the one thing he will say is, and you know, Cork are, you know, a club of a stature where they, you know, deserve to at least see some good free flowing football, which they will under Buckley. He's going to come up to Oriel, and he's not going to be, you know, he's not going to be a Jordan Caulfield. Like he's going to try and play, and he's going to try and win, and that hopefully will play out in our favour, because I think we've got players who can exploit the gaps that they will leave, because, you know, the players, as you said, are of a standard where they're probably a fair reflection of where they are in terms of the league table. Without, I'm not trying to insult them in any way, shape or form, but, you know, they don't have many big names. You know, they're not the Cork of, you know, 5-6 years ago. And, you know, we do have a good chance. But then again, Ian Buckley's liable to pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah, look, and that's always the fear. But I'm just hoping momentum's behind us now, and as I say, these players who we talked about tonight, who are adapting probably better to the league. This is just another platform for them, another game to hopefully showcase how well they go. And plus, with the home crowd behind us, Nick, we've seen that have a massive impact. In games before, especially crucial games for ourselves as well. Look, I think we probably run enough on that tonight. An hour and 10, lads, out of a 1-0 win over in
That's what we do at the town end, boys.
Yeah, fair play. I just want to thank all our sponsors, obviously Player Fit for their 2020 shirt for this year, and thanks everyone for all their contributions, for Tony's Pizzeria, for our Man of the Match competition, and for Dundalk Village and Donald Green for continued support of the overall podcast. And thanks to you, gentlemen, to David and Gally. Thank you for your contributions tonight, and for everybody for all your messages in. And Tin Tomato, you don't always have to agree with us, but at least you always come back. That's the main thing. Thank you.